allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Public participation is encouraged in the Laurel School District. All meetings of the board will be open to the public except as provided by law. Scheduled meetings of the board may be recorded. Audience members may address the board during public comment for non-agenda interests or during the discussion of the relevant printed agenda item. Your attendance is welcome. If you plan to speak to the board, please look over the information on the agenda, then complete a public comment card in the back of the room and hand it to myself or Julie. Do we have any public comment for non-agenda items? Hearing none, we will move on to the agenda. Correspondence. We had a sizable donation from Conver and Winchell Insurance. And now we have presentations for Shane.
Trustees. Start off with West. We are roofed and dried in. Windows should be starting to be installed within the next few weeks. We'll totally enclose the building. Framing is almost complete. Rough in for mechanical, electrical, and plumbing is in full progress. Doing very well from that perspective. All of our site concrete and paving is in. Hopefully everybody had a chance to get by and maybe see the site and everything that's in. So pretty happy that that's in, obviously before winter. We are prepared for winter conditions. We already have the heater rentals. We got the Northwest Energy glass. So we're all set, prepared for that when that starts. We're continuing to work inside of the existing building. We're working on the north end and the renovation of those where the old office space was. They've done a lot of off hours work with any of the noisy stuff. So we're trying to make sure that that's done in off hours. And then throughout the day, they're doing some of the non-noisy work. So we're continuing to progress. Anything we get done now is that much less we have to do next summer because there's still a pile of work to do. So very happy with that. And we haven't created too much of a mess for Bethany yet. So she hasn't kicked us out. And we continue to be on schedule. So I'm very happy with what I'm seeing from that perspective. Mogan, they're working on the roof and getting ready to close in that building as well, that's a big deal for us. Windows should be arriving in the next few weeks as well. There's one delivering west and they're going to start delivering Mogan right after that. Framing is going on well. They're done with third on second, almost finished with first. MEP rough in is following right behind them. That's going very well. We should be ready for the weather there as well because we've got all the heaters rented and we have Northwest Energy all lined up. Make sure that we have heat throughout the winter, which will obviously make it a productive site. This was our whole goal to begin with, was to be able to get these buildings enclosed before the winter. And it looks like we're in really good shape for that. Kudos to the team for really pushing that through. So we're on schedule there. South, we want to bid this in January, February, and I know at the last board meeting, Renee, you wanted to be able to talk about this. They also have to present this at schematics, and Brad is, there he is, he snuck in. So I'll let him come up and present South to you guys, and then we can obviously take any questions. Graph, I want to give a quick update at Graph too. We've got the geotechnical engineer. We're starting to engage them. We'll get all the geotech reports done for the site. We have Northern Industrial that's going to start working on the bid docs for the asbestos abatement for the old Graph School. That'll start in June, and then hopefully we'll have formal bids for demo in the fields early spring as well. That's our schedule for get full design, get them out to bid this spring. I'll take any questions and I'll turn it over to Brad.
Anybody have any questions? I guess before we move on to Annie's portion, is there any public comment on Shane's portion? Any questions? Okay.
Awesome. Well, great to see you all again. It's exciting to see everything you've done and what we started, a couple years ago. So I can't start without saying what it is, how awesome it is to just drive around and see both West and the intermediate school going. So what's in front of you is just a quick presentation on some of the work that's happening at South Elementary. Just for the admin space, as an update, our goal and plan is to be ready by the end of this month to put that out for bid. What you're seeing is a diagram that basically shows sort of the layout within the space of, as you come in the building of south to the kind of the south end of the page south, you see kind of a reception space, then into the superintendent's office where Matt will be. As you kind of work your way down that hallway, then having the business manager space as well as the human resources. And that kind of follows as you kind of go to the north end of the wing. There's a couple of rooms that additional training and register room will be updated as well. But then those two spaces, the student service and storage, it's my understanding that those will be kind of left untouched to some degree, right? Correct. Yeah. Those are going to be, while we show it as kind of color, that's the function that they will serve, but they will be left untouched. The boardroom, these spaces will all be updated with lighting, mechanical system upgrades, but really in the effort of just being economical with funding that we have available. I mean, we're trying to be as efficient as possible with these spaces, as you can see. So you can kind of see the layout in there, as well as some renderings that show some of those spaces as we get into it. As you kind of just piece through, it just shows renderings of those spaces. Of first one being the reception into the superintendent's office. Again, viewing out from the desk behind that, and then just looking at kind of what these typical office spaces or conference rooms kind of look like for each of those functions. Obviously, updating some of the finishes with accent carpets, some painting in walls, but really just trying to kind of live within the means as best we can. Really, the budget didn't support, a complete gut and redo of that building, which obviously we'd love to do, but that just really isn't in the cards. So with any district, we work with districts all over. Unfortunately, admin spaces are just, this is what they are. It's hard to fund those spaces when you need to put students first. So. And staff. Any questions?
Do you want to come up? Because Matt's on the phone, and the only way he can hear us is if we talk into a microphone.
So one of the things when we started this, if you remember, what we tried to do was balance it against kind of what we thought the budget might be you would get out of this building, was kind of my direction. So that's what I charged them with, is obviously they developed this. This is the amount of money the district potentially could have. And that's where we need to stay. So there wasn't a lot of fluff. We didn't got the whole building. We did do the mechanical. This is probably the biggest expense in this is actually going to be the mechanical system to actually condition these spaces.
And a lot of that has to do is you've got staff working all year round in this building, then that's just a need through the summer.
So even though it might seem a little austere, it was just because that was kind of the budget we.
And I think we all knew that going into this, that was going to be the, aside from getting the mechanical systems in there, this was kind of lowest priority on our, just to make it livable for our admin people. But I still think that space as it is pretty decent. So, is there any comments, Chris?
So we know what we're getting for this building. What did you guys sort of plan for budgeting on this one?
I had 1.25, and it was 1 because I knew kind of roughly what I was told the estimates potentially we would get for this building. But then we knew that Wayne had pointed out the electrical service. I'd been through the mechanical in the building. I didn't quite understand the electrical service. Wayne had pointed out that we might have issues with our electrical service. So I had to obviously bump that up just a little bit. From what I've seen, I think we're within that budget, even with the electrical. So
To be clear then, that's not coming from bond money then? We're probably anticipating that from the sale of this building money?
I want to preface that because obviously we're doing well on our buildings and we have contingencies that were built into those buildings. We have not had to utilize very much of that contingency. That's what's helping us cover, getting us over the hump on graph.
Right.
And as we progress, we continue to do well. So
Okay.
if I want to fully answer that, no.
Okay.
Potentially we could, and obviously we know that we've been invested in the slug. Obviously we'll see what those returns are as well, because I don't count that as, I never count on that because it's like gambling. You don't know if you're going to get that money until it hits your account. So I would preface it with that.
Okay. Yeah, I just worry because we have a capital budget that's for buildings that's depreciated or depleted, excuse me, quite a bit recently. So it'd be nice to replenish that with this money because this can go back into less restricted money. Hopefully we can.
I think that's our goal.
That is our goal.
That's our goal.
Absolutely. Yeah. And again, I'm not counting. I did not pile any additional slug that we're going to get in the current. I left it back at the June when we found out, some of the issues that we might have with the county investment. So.
And then last question, I guess, would be, how is the design side of Graph going?
So Graph, it really just kind of started in the last probably few weeks. And so I was hesitant to bring anything to show you because I feel like, honestly, it needs some more time just to go through the team that's working through the field space. I think just like this, we bring back, once we feel like we're a little bit closer to like an iteration that makes sense, let's bring that back. Let's show it to you. Let's put it in front of you for just a quick thumbs up, thumbs medium, thumbs down of like where it's at. But we're just not there yet. We need to.
Gotcha.
We did sit down with the coaches. We're part of a meeting with Matt and Wayne, and we figured out like potential field, how the fields could lay out, where we could put the discus, the shot put, and working all that in.
Field.
And then maybe we would sacrifice a little bit of parking to be able to actually make that work better for the, whatever the events are, because they were kind of overlapping. So they still have to like lay that out in the field really well. Then obviously bring it back and make sure that you guys get a pass at it.
Okay. Awesome. Go ahead.
I mean, I'm excited.
I would just say that my only comment is to make sure that we're including all the coaches on that area that we're, especially the softball portion of that as we move forward, just so that we feel like we have that we're getting it right the first time, because sometimes that doesn't happen. And so we want to make sure we get that space right.
I don't know all the coaches very well, but I know that the softball coach was there and that
No, our AD was there and our assistant AD. Our assistant AD has been a softball coach.
Okay, so we need to make sure that we're including all of those coaches and that whoever this is affecting, we need to make sure that we're including them in those meetings. Okay? Okay. Well, we appreciate all the work you guys are doing, and it's been good news so far every time you come.
And these are much better than what we were doing 2 years ago. I'll be much different conversation.
Feels better.
Nervous, Brad, and all those meetings. I thought we were never going to get anything built for like take $100 million to build an elementary school. So I'm happy that
There's a little magic in what we do.
Yeah, you guys are doing great. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much.
Okay, is there any public comments? Hearing none, we will move on to the high school CTE presentation.
Good evening, everybody. I think some of you have the PowerPoint and are following along, and so we're actually going to jump ahead to slide 12 if you're following along. This was the PowerPoint that we started off of last year, and we figured that we would just continue. It's a good place to have everything all in one set of notes as we're moving forward. So slide 12, just kind of as a recap of things that we needed to work on in 2023 and 24, things that we were working on last year, like updating our course catalogs, some things in Infinite Campus with course codings and offerings. And then we had also started initially the graduate profile conversation as part of our school improvement plan. And then just things that we knew that we needed to continue to work on as we moved forward. So that's kind of where we left off last year. And then moving into this year, met with you guys recently and kind of got some direction of things you guys wanted us to be looking at. So we can jump to the next slide. So one of the things that the board was asking were, what are our long-term goals? And after that conversation, reviewing our slides, we sat down as an administrative team and kind of came up with these 4 areas as big long-term goals, thinking well into the future, 3 to 5 years down the road, you know, as we're looking if we're going to be going for another bond or developing CTE programs at the high school down the road. What are we looking for? So ultimately, learning outcomes for Laurel Public Schools, defining those expectations at all grade levels, which then bleeds into the graduate profile work. Part of that is also then looking at the pathway development, identifying which pathways we need to invest in and which pathways we currently already have started that we need to continue to grow in. That's definitely some work that we still need to do. Looking at employability skills for our students, and not just at the high school, but developing kind of that pipeline from kindergarten all the way to career focus. There's lots of things that we can do in our STEM classes at the elementary level or in our feeder classes at the middle school level. We've also talked about wanting to develop a new course at the high school, particularly called Freshman Academy, as an elective course. And then that elective course really focuses on those soft skills, those employability skills. Part of all of that work kind of loops back to that graduate profile work and really starting to connect with our business partners in the community. What are the skills that they're looking for? What are the skills that they're hoping to see from a potential employee? Because that guides a lot of the other pieces that we work on. And then always staff support. We've talked about this, that this work around CTE, many larger districts have somebody devoted exclusively to this work, that is their job. And so we're trying to do the best that we can with the resources that we have, but definitely looking at staffing support down the road too for CTE, such as a career counselor, someone who helps kids work on all of those pieces around career options, understanding the inventory profile that they might take in a classroom. And then we also talked about a program coordinator, which could look like a lot of different things, a TOSA position in that role to work directly with teachers, to help teachers know how to integrate things into their content areas, as well as then bridge that teacher and student piece with the employability piece. So definitely looking for some staffing support as we continue to work on this.
And the program coordinator could also work as outreach to business partners too, helping bridge that gap and helping really facilitate job shadowing and internships and helping students get a little more integrated into what the different fields look like and what opportunities are there for them. Sometimes students don't even know what types of jobs exist until they get into some of the fields.
So we can go to the next slide. So we also were asked to really look at what our goals were and then the proposed timeline around those goals. Currently, right now, we needed some next steps for right now. And what we are working on this year is those student interest inventory results, looking at our existing data and our existing processes and procedures, and trying to figure out how we can be more intentional and streamline some of those processes and pieces. And Dr. Byington will speak to those in just a minute. looking at those interest inventories versus the needs of our community, looking at existing data, where is that existing data coming from? And then just processes and procedures around all of that. One of the other pieces that Mr. Stilson is working on is just understanding Build Montana and that school to work opportunity, working with our teachers at the high school who do work study and school to work, and really trying to make sure that we're accessing all of the different resources that are out there. And then one of the things that we all talked about is that this is not my expertise. This is not the expertise of our administration at the high school. And so we need to learn more about CTE programming and just educate ourselves so that we can do the best job that we can. And we are going to, all three of us, attend some ACT learning opportunities over the next couple of months. Mr. Stilson is going to one called Best Practices in Portland, coming up here in the next couple of weeks, beginning of October. And then Dr. Byington and I are going to San Antonio to one that is more around some of the technology. It's called The Vision. It's the ACTE Vision Expo. And so we're using some of the literacy grant funding because this does tie directly into ensuring that our CTE programs have best practices and have the best instruction in front of our students. And that's just an area that we felt the three of us could really learn from. So we found those conferences that are going on. So we're going to be going to those and then bringing back that information into our direct work, as well as being able to share that out with all of you. We figured our next check-in and connect with the school board would be the end of semester 1. So probably like early February. And by then we will have a little bit more work done at the district leadership team meeting around the graduate profile. We'll have gotten a good jump start on that. We'll have completed our conferences and our education and learning in that area, and then start to really kind of flesh out some of those broad timelines for our long-term goals and have some concrete intended outcomes to take action on for those. Much of that work is happening in the DLT subcommittee work, particularly the Leadership for Learning Committee. And then I just added the team members' names up there that are a part of that Leadership for Learning Committee. That committee does have a couple of more meetings between now and the time when we'll present, and we'll possibly, try to incorporate them into the conversation at that time. So it's not just the high school admin, because it really does come all the way from the elementaries up. And then towards the end of the year, we're thinking about end of Q3. I don't remember who it was on the board, but asking for kind of like our narrative of our vision for CTE for Laurel Public Schools. And that's going to be part of some of that other work that's already happening. So really trying to get that crafted towards the end of the school year, but not the very end, so that if there's anything we need to adjust before summertime, we have a little bit of time to do that. And then definitely hoping by then we also have a little bit more information about any community partners that we've identified, who those community partners are across the area, and if any of them need to be included, most likely into that Leadership for Learning Committee that's meeting as part of the district leadership team. And so I am going to pass the next couple of slides off to Dr. Byington.
So on the next slide, this is a piece that Mr. Stilson has been working a lot on recently. The MCIS is an interest inventory that can be given to high school students. It's free of charge for schools to use. It is run, I believe it's facilitated out of the University of Montana, and it's supported by state funding. So it identifies things in different ways. It identified our highest occurring clusters for students who had taken it between 2019 and 2024 as the things on the left: transportation, health, information, finance, law, agriculture, and arts. And those are really wide clusters. So they identified a lot of different positions within them. What you see on the right in the white is what's some of the things that students had saved to their profiles, some of the most frequently occurring saved positions. You know, there's no irony to be missed in the fact that high school students are saving video game designer as a prime job for themselves. But it's also encouraging to see writer and editor up there at the top as well. We have been giving this in a couple of different classes, so we don't have a consistent administration of it. So this is data that has come in the last few years through the courses that have used it, like Mr. Kimmett's, some of Mr. Kimmett's business classes, and I think our personal finance classes used it. And then we use it with some of our special education students as they work through transition. So our goal with this is in the next months, ideally November, December, we want to give it to all of our freshmen and sophomores to get a broader data swipe as to what our students' interests really are.
Okay, next slide.
And this slide is just an example of the other piece of data that we're going to look at, the other type of data that we're going to look at. And there's a lot of data out there like this. We have to find the right sources. These are two pieces. On the left is projected Montana job growth, and on the right is a chart of high wage, high demand categories for the state of Montana. You can see some cross-reference in these two, and then you might also notice some cross-reference between the last slide where it had healthcare and construction and trades and some of those things as high occurring clusters for our students. So what we want to do is go out and do a good job looking at not only information on the state of Montana, but also in our area, what in this region. So we're setting our students up for high wage, high demand, high skill jobs. So whether they go to a 4-year college, a 2-year college, they go into the services, or they go into an apprenticeship or straight to work, we should be setting them up for success after high school. I think that brings us to the end of our.
Yep, and we just wanted to kind of keep it simple and address some of the items that you guys had asked us to address. Those are the last of the new slides, and we'll just keep building out from there. Are there any questions or
comments?
So I was just wondering, I think there's going to be a lot of business people and tradespeople in participating in this. How equipped are we to handle opportunities if the business community brings those to us? As we convene them, right, as part of this, later this year, if opportunities come, do we go, yeah, that's all great, let's wait another year? Like, that's going to burn the business people out and be like, you're not ready, then why are we even at the table? So I just wonder if when we convene these folks, how capable are we going to be able to at least take some steps with them now? Do you believe?
I think that's part of developing a good strategic plan. Being able to say to the business people, this is what we're looking at. So even if we're not able to bring them exactly what they're looking for right away, maybe there are pieces that we can put into play. Maybe we have students who can come out and do internships. Maybe we can work out opportunities for them to visit some of our classes. But it does take time to put some of these things into place. Businesses know that. They know that really well, that it takes time to develop some of these things. And a lot of them can't just be put into place overnight. But asking them to come and sit at the table and to be part of guidance committees as we develop some of the pathways, and asking for their input, not only what can we bring to them, but what can they bring to us, and where can we work together to bring some of these things out. I think that they would be respectful of that plan, so long as we're very thoughtful and strategic about it. And there might be pieces that have to wait a year, like if they say, okay, we can donate this piece of equipment, but we don't have a place to put it or a way to make use of it yet. They don't want to donate a piece of equipment that's going to sit. So I would think that they would understand and be respectful of us wanting to make good use and good faith investment there. Having worked with some of the guiding committees before in career pathways, the business people that come to the table are they're excited to be involved and invested, and they find a lot of ways to be involved that you're ready for. Like they're ready to send guest speakers or visit your school or have students come out. And there are small ways we can get involved right away.
As you're continuing to do this, will you also keep in mind public charter schools and community choice schools? I know community choice schools have a little bit greater flexibility in operation, and this is something I think that will need that, especially in terms of some of the teaching and I think lab or work outside of the classroom.
I think those are some of the breakout sessions that I can't speak for everybody, but that I definitely hope to attend at the workshops and conferences that we go to. I know one of the pre-conference rotations that Mr. Stilson is going to is a tour of ACTE focused school and being able to then interact and talk to those people who work at those places. So definitely hoping to gather a lot of ideas about what could education look like, what could our teaching and instruction look like.
And in fairness, the charter application is something that is very much on the front burner for us. And we'll probably be coming back to discuss with the board sooner rather than later. They're literally sitting on my desk, and it's something that we need to work on, as we know that there are deadlines that are coming up. Originally, the last year's batch that were approved went through in March. So this year, the deadline is November. So that will be coming up soon. And we will likely have a pilot project that we want to bring to the board for discussion.
I just want to say thank you. It's nice to see that you're really pushing this forward and taking it and giving yourself some goals and timelines so that us in the community can be on top of it. And it's really great to see. So thank you for all your work.
Any public comment?
Hearing none, I think. Oh, do you have one more?
I'm not public, but I just thought of something.
Okay.
Sorry. What do you foresee for our district as right now? I know we haven't gotten into this deeply yet, but as you put this together, what do you see as maybe a big challenge or hurdle for us? Is it space? Is it teachers? Is it student interest? What do you think is our biggest obstacles right now?
Space and teachers, it is. Industry teachers. It's just a challenge.
But they're still out there, and there are some people that just want to be involved in education. And it's great when industry can as we develop these space facilities, equipment, those will be challenges. Hopefully we will have some business partners that can help us with some of those things, and hopefully we'll be able to meet them and strive with them.
And I would just add to that, I think the oversight of programs like this, industries are changing. The jobs that our kids in high school now will go into, you've heard that saying that they haven't even been created and developed yet. So when the industry is changing so quickly, staying on top of that is really challenging for the three of us. We've definitely engaged more people around the table this year with the district leadership team, with that subcommittee work. We have that whole group that's working on bits and pieces of this, but the oversight of this is an incredible challenge for time to go out and talk to community members, or build a survey, or administer the survey and then get those results out in a timely manner to be able to take action and do something with them. So just the program oversight, I think, is a huge challenge.
I wanted to go back to slide 4, as you mentioned, the staffing, which is about the licensures, just to remind the board too, because it's been a minute since we've seen that. You spoke about industry professionals maybe being able to help with the education. Like even myself with a finance background, I'd love to be able to come and do something at the school that would count, and besides just like a guest speaker type thing. And I wonder, does that apply to this class 4 teaching, or could you remind us what that is exactly?
So class 4 teaching licenses, and I might have to rely on Peggy for this because it's been a hot minute since I've delved into this. But it's if they've already worked in the industry and they have a certain number of hours towards that, then they can apply for that OPI licensure. I think some of the challenge there is we're not in need of a business teacher, right? So we have a business teacher, we have a teacher in that area. Or I think at a previous discussion, somebody said, like a master welder. Well, we have a master welder teacher. So it's in those industry areas where we have the need, the community has the want and the desire, and we don't have a teacher. And then it comes back to those pieces around space. Do we have the space? Do we have students that we can put into those classes? So we have to make sure that we're using our current FTE wisely. And when we're looking for individuals that fit that class 4 career and technical license, it's in areas that we don't have, which then speaks to, well, what don't we have? What don't we have that people are interested in, that students are interested in, that we need to develop? So yes and no to the answer to that question. But yes, it's individuals who already have worked in the industry and have a number of hours towards that licensure.
Would that apply to say computer stuff too? Like if we had an engineer, software engineer or something that wanted to come and help, does that fall into that same sort of technical trade area, or is that where's the line, I guess is what I'm getting at for that? It's not just welders and
Right.
framers, right?
Right. So like computer engineering, I think that it depends on what class we're trying to offer. So we would have to think about, okay, what class is it that we're trying to offer? And then OPI has a document that indicates what kind of instruction or intended outcome would come from that particular class. That was the course coding work that we did last year. And then from there, they also say what licensure that individual teaching that class should have. And so it really does depend. It depends on what class we're talking about. And it could be 6 different ways till Sunday of what licensure we're looking at. The good thing is that OPI gives us so many options and gives us the opportunity to look at people from the industries to teach those types of classes.
Well, and it doesn't preclude them from, they don't have to have this licensure. Say we have a business class, that we have a business teacher who holds whatever license or degree they need, that if there's a finance person that wants to come in and partner and help teach a few classes to get a certain point, that doesn't preclude them from coming in and doing that kind of more as a guest speaker, correct? And that's how I'm guessing we're going to partner more with our industries, is to bring those people in, not necessarily hire them, but bring them more in as guest speakers or guest instructor kind of people to take over that piece maybe for whatever course we're offering.
Collaboration instructor, you have a teacher of record that's employed by the school district, and you're covering a unit in something, and it might be your students going out on site. Maybe they're going out on site. In one piece of experience I had, there was a hospital that offered up their training room. And so the students would go out with their health sciences teacher, and there was a nurse instructor that would provide instruction on site in their training room for that class period, for a certain chunk of time in the units they were covering. So you really look at different industry collaborations and where they're able to partner, and they might not be able to put somebody in place for an entire year, but they might be able to put somebody in place for this chunk of time for a few weeks, and to bring your students out or to come into your classroom and help support with, this is how this software runs, and let them play in the sandbox of a software program. So it really comes down to some creative collaboration where we're not hiring and certifying. That takes some of the financial burden off of us, and it gives the industry partners some buy-in and some places for their people to use talents that they're not going to use.
Because like you mentioned, if we were to hire that individual, that's then out of our budget, that's one of our FTE that we are paying for. So that's a great idea.
That's good, because I wanted to know how that collaboration might work where, someone wanted to devote, or an organization wanted to devote time like that, how we would enable that time to count more than a guest speaker, like you said, because I think that's what's the impact of that. As much as good, it's nice to see maybe like someone who could like consistently devote time, like framing a house or plumbing it or developing software or whatever those people want to do, or architecture, like Brad wanted, but that kind of stuff where we could have a partnership where where the credit counts for the student, and we're not having to worry, about hiring a license. Basically, what I was looking for. So, thank you.
Public comment? Okay, thank you guys for coming.
Thank you.
Okay, next on the agenda is the consent agenda. Do I have a motion?
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I have a motion to approve by Jenny and Chris or a second by Chris Larash. Is there any comment? Any public comment? Hearing none, we will go ahead and vote. We have a motion to approve by Jenny, second by Chris Larash. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, on to our action items. We have some policy reviews, our first reading. We'll go through them individually just so that everybody can kind of see what the changes are. All the changes were noted on the policy, so you should be able to see what the changes were. So first we'll start with policy 3630, the cell phone and other electronic devices. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve policy 3630, cell phone and other electronic devices, first reading.
Second.
Motion by Chris Larash and a second by Donnie. Is there any comment or question on that one? So basically the change was that there was a line in there about that if the cell phone was taken from a student, that it would only be returned to their parent or guardian. Well, in some of our handbooks, it allows for that to be given back to the student the first time and then the parent. So we just made it the change so that it refers back to the handbooks, since each school might have a little different procedure on that. So that was the only change in that one. Any other questions or comments? Any public comment? Hearing none, we will go ahead and vote. We have a motion to approve by Chris, second by Donnie. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Hearing none, the motion carries. On to number 2, procedure 2221 P1, school emergency and closure procedures. Do I have a motion?
I motion to approve the first reading of procedure 2221 P1.
Motion to approve by Jenny, second by Chris Vogely. Do we have any comments on that?
I was just kind of curious. I mean, I can see why in a policy it would just say that your methods of communication are social media and whatever the second one was. Is it outlined somewhere else within handbooks or whatever, what the social media avenues we use are, and what the other was a student notification system, so that's fine, but
I'm not
I
sure.
was just wondering if it's noted somewhere, so someone who's reading this has a place to go to figure out what it is.
Sure that it's outlined in any handbooks. Allison, do you know if it says in the
specifically stated exactly like go here, but we just say that we can use social media such as examples of like Facebook and that, but it's not itemized that this is where you need to go.
It just says social media. So I just thought that was kind of a,
I think it's
trips
trying
people
to
up.
it's trying to give an overall, I think, umbrella because you know who knows how long Facebook will be around, you know, and that's something else new, so that way you're not constantly changing it.
and I agree totally with that concept in policy. I just think there needs to be somewhere that people can figure out how to expect to get notifications.
Well, I think that, I mean, I think
Emergency
that,
isn't the
I think
best
that
way
our
to put it.
parents are pretty well communicated that the way we communicate is Infinite Campus or the all-call system. I mean, we communicate with them.
All
the
schools use the
time.
Infinite Campus all-call system, and like the elementary uses Class Dojo, and so that's a secured system. And the teachers with their welcome letters, I'm kind of speaking probably out of turn, but they give codes out to the parents because they have to have a code to go on to Dojo to specifically do that. And same with at the middle school, when we do our welcome letter at the beginning of the year, we let parents know that please look at the Facebook page for Laurel Middle School. So, I mean, the parents are communicated with, it's just not written into the handbook.
And as principals, we all can give out those messages, and I try to duplicate what's in Facebook into Class Dojo.
Maybe going forward in handbooks.
Not necessarily. I just wondered what the process was so people knew.
I kind of like it in the welcome letters because if it does change, then, I mean, people say not that they read the handbook. I'm not sure we always read the handbook, where a welcome letter with this class schedule, they tend to pay a little more attention to. So that's just my thought.
Would you say it's fair to say that that's the secondary source of communication anyway? Because I'll be honest, like I don't find anything out on Facebook. I find it out when the school calls me. So I think it's probably still just an ancillary anyway, even though it's mentioned. I wouldn't say it's the district's primary form of communicating with
I
parents.
would say primary contact with parents for, you know, specifically like parent-teacher conferences, stuff that pertains directly to the family, that's critical information. We will use the all-call system or Infinite Campus. Our social media platforms are more of celebrations, kind of maybe some information about events.
The teachers really use Class Dojo more to get in contact with parents. As principals, it's more of a general message for us.
And we use the email system for our parents, for the teachers, they contact through email.
Public comment? Okay, so we have a motion by Jenny, a second by Chris. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Now we'll move on to procedure 5120 P1, hiring process and criteria, fingerprint background handling procedure. Do I have a motion?
I'll move to approve the changes to procedure 5120 P1.
Second.
Approved by Donnie, a second by Chris. Is there any discussion?
But I do have a question.
Okay.
So the change is being recommended to remove the 5 years and leave it just the length of employment. But I noticed that the model policy still includes 5 years if it's less than 5 years of employment. I was just wondering the thought process behind the change.
Peggy, do you want to come speak to that?
Being an old lady, but that is what is required to have the fingerprint machine in that is what their recommendation is. So that's what the policy was changed to follow what their Department of Justice asked us to do and require us to do.
stay up there so you don't have to come back up. Under retention and storage procedure, it states that the superintendent and the HR director are the only ones that have access to the information.
Correct.
But then later on, it talks about shredding that information, and it says the HR specialist will do that. And don't they have to have access to it in order to
Yes.
shred it?
Yes, and we would shred it according to the regulations that Julie has in place for shredding. So, yeah, I think we might have missed that one. So she has it anyway. She gets it. She does the fingerprint machine. So she sees the report. And if there's anything on there, then it comes to me and to approve it or have a meeting with if there's something on it. And then if it's something I feel like I need to address with the superintendent, then I will notify the superintendent and we talk about it. So she sees it anyway.
We probably need to change that line to include the HR specialist. So,
Or designee.
The results go to her email. So
In that, it says only authorized personnel, superintendent and HR director, as noted in this policy, have access to this information. So I would say that HR specialist needs to be in there in order to.
yeah, or we could say,
cover
or
that.
their designee, yeah. Because she does have access to that information, absolutely.
I agree. Probably designee like Donnie.
Just
Yeah, I think
say
it's good.
designee.
It gives you
because we
some
haven't-
opportunity
May
if
not be.
you change anything within the
We
department.
haven't had a specialist for that long, so.
Right.
Looks like Matt's already making it right now.
I know, I was just gonna type it and he got all fast on me.
Thanks, Matt.
Any other questions?
Thanks from the board. Any public comment? Okay. Hearing none, do you want to amend our,
I'll amend my motion to approve it with the change to including the HR designee to access to the material.
we have a motion by Donnie and a second by Chris. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Hearing none, the motion carries. Next item is notice form 2314 NF1 instructional and library materials review, citizens request for reconsideration of material. Have a motion?
I'd like to motion to table this.
I'll second it just so we can have conversation.
Table by Jenny, a second by Donnie. Do we have any discussion?
So I'll just say, I appreciate the effort to try to make it better. I don't love that there was no changes to the form that the person who wishes to challenge the material, those all remain the same. I don't like the reviewing media. We specifically took that out of the policy, you know, the American Film Association evaluations, the school library journals. And then what I'm really confused about is we took all the questions out of the committee's response form. And as somebody who would be concerned about a book, I like to see what the committee is looking at from their point of view, so that way I can formulate my challenge to address their concerns. And there's nothing about the new policy. We should have some questions in here like, does it follow our current policy? What are the concerns? Like, we should reference our own policy, I think, that we just passed. So I just think it needs a little bit of work before I'm willing to approve it again.
I guess I would agree with Jenny. I think that we need to, we provided guidelines in our policy, things that can almost be checkoffs that can be used through this process. And I think we need to include those somehow on both sides of both the person asking for the review as well as the committee that's looking at that request for review. So I think we probably need to do some work on it to kind of streamline those two processes and streamline the language within those so they reflect each other. Does anybody else have any comments? Any public comment? So, or ask that this be sent back to leadership and learning? Okay. So I have a motion by Jenny, a second by Donnie to table this, which would send it back to leadership and learning. I guess we'll go ahead and vote then. So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. The next item is procedure 2410 P1, high school graduation requirements. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve procedure 2410 P1, high school graduation requirements, first reading.
Second.
So I have a motion to approve by Chris, a second by Kayla. Is there any questions, comments? I guess the only thing I would ask is that just because in policy we've been trying to spell out acronyms, is that we spell out Montana State University Billings and University of Montana Western, just for consistency's sake, because we've tried to do that on all that we've reviewed. So if we can just change those are more clerical things. So I don't really think we need to bring it back other than for the second reading. But
Yeah, Matt's already changed it, so.
is there any other comments? Any public comment? Hearing none, we will go ahead and vote. We have a motion by Chris and a second by Kayla. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. We are on to the books donated to the high school. I'll take a motion for all of them at one time unless someone doesn't want to do that. Good with that? Okay, so I'll hear a motion.
Motion to approve the books donated to the high school.
Motion to approve the 3 books listed by Kayla, second by Chris. Any discussion? Any public comment? Hearing none, we will go ahead and vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. The next item is a change of class identifiers in high school activity account. Do I have a motion?
I'll move to approve the change of the class identifiers in the high school student activity accounts.
Second. Motion to approve by Donnie, second by me. Is there any questions or comment on that? This kind of just resolves a lot of transferring every year to try to shore up everybody's, so it'll just, their class will just go away when they go away and everybody's money will stay with them as they go through.
That was my only comment, that it's a very logical change to make. Yeah, good job.
We have a motion by Donnie, a second by me. Oh, is there any public comment? Hearing none. There's a motion by Donnie, a second by me. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next agenda item is co-curricular stipends for mentors and DLT representatives. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve the co-curricular stipends for mentors and DLT representatives.
Second.
Here, Kayla. Sorry, I was looking. Okay. Have a motion by Chris and a second by Jenny. Is there any comments or questions?
I guess I'm just a little confused. By the title of it, yeah, it looks like it's multiple people and positions, but when you look at the list, it's one. I just want to make sure that's right.
That is correct. That's my fault. I was in a hurry writing the recommendation to get it in for the board packet. And I did a copy and paste from the full list that I presented a couple of weeks ago. And I should have written a whole brand new one, but I was in a rush. So that was my fault. It is just one. There was an adjustment to change from someone who was on the list a couple of weeks ago who has since said that they don't want to be a mentor. And so we found a new mentor. So that was my fault. So if you want me to go back and write a whole new recommendation, I'm more than happy to do so.
Just want to make sure we weren't missing.
Yeah, it is just the one person, but because they're receiving a stipend, then we have to bring it forward.
Any public comment? Hearing none, we will go ahead and vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. So the next thing is our student board representative, which Jamila's not here tonight, so we will move that to the next. Okay, moving on to superintendent's report. Matt, do you have anything that isn't on here?
No, I don't.
We just have resignations. Anybody have any questions, comments, public comment? So moving on to discussion items. The first item was the levy discussion, which we started at our last meeting. And did everybody, I don't know if is that email in this packet, Julie? Do we know? Okay, so we got direction from, I think Matt forwarded it, but just answered from MTSBA about, Matt, do you want to talk about that?
I don't have the email right in front of me, but Julie can help a little bit as well. Because she also talked to the county elections person. And it looks like that if we stay pretty basic, we can make changes down the road if we decide something different. Julie, do you have any comments to add to that?
Oh, you're right. We could just make changes down the road, long as it's 70 days before election day.
So no one seemed to be too worried about it. So if we want to move forward with something at the next meeting, and then we decide, hey, we want to pull back or we want to add something, I think we'll be just fine.
I'm just curious what the merit of declaring it so early would be, specifically given the fact that we can still talk about district needs without that declaration. As just that, you know, I don't know if it makes sense to declare it this early.
The only advantage I would see would be that we have solid numbers to give people what is it going to cost us tax-wise. I think that's something that people want to know fairly quickly. It's not a requirement. It's something we could even solidify in December. And then we'd have plenty of time to get numbers out. But we want to start talking to people now and get that need. Wayne, you'll see B is the deferred maintenance list. I just want to let you guys know that Wayne was working on that, especially for the high school. And that stuff will all be moving forward. We can start moving forward with our discussions. It's just nice to have as much information as possible. So when we go to them, we can answer questions. But it can wait.
I guess I would like to see us wait a while to do it too, a little closer to the scheduled deadlines. But again, that doesn't stop us from talking about it as we go. Would it be possible to get the email response from School Board Association sent to all trustees? Perfect, thank you.
Yeah, no problem at all. Julie can forward that, or I can forward it when I get back. But Julie has it, and I believe Brittany has it as well.
So I think maybe we'll just like leave this on as kind of a discussion when we want to start those, because it doesn't preclude us from going out and talking to the community at events that we have, like we did with the building. And even if we don't have specific numbers, we probably kind of can generalize what we're looking at, and based on the list that Wayne puts together, what that's going to look like. And we have to ballpark at least for people to at least get some communication out there. I think is always positive.
I'd say to that end, I mean, it's fall, so we probably should start coordinating that as a group and talk about that messaging more, because we're going to be, I mean, we could be doing it at football games. There's a lot of attendance at football games usually. So that would be a good place to do it. And then we're going into fall sports too. So we probably need to work on that messaging like this sooner than later, so that we can have a table that and have some meaningful conversation and numbers like, you know, we'll hear from Wayne, I'm sure, next about those deferred maintenance items and things that we can be talking about. So.
And Wayne and I talked about today, I'm working on the presentation. Hopefully for the next meeting, I'd like to, it's on what we've done with the building reserve and what we plan to do with the building reserve, just so you can see history plus future needs.
I think too, there needs to be some sort, I think people going to football games and basketball games and events are probably not people we have to win over their vote. Their kids are in, they're involved and they know. They're probably already more on our side than we think. I think it's probably people that don't come to the events and don't have kids that are in those exact schools that have the problems, which is the high school. Like, I think there has to be some sort of outreach beyond people that are coming to.
Well, we do. I think
Right.
it would be the same avenues we took when we did I mean, we went to every church that would let us come talk, the daycare, or the preschool let us come, senior center. I mean, I'm sure Matt has lists of where he all went to, because he went to almost every one of them.
Yeah.
Others of us showed up when we could, but I think, yeah, we need to touch everything. But it was positive to have it at the games. It was a lot of people, and they go talk to people. And so
I'm not saying we don't do that. I'm just saying we need to do on top, like that's bare minimum.
And that's absolutely what we did before too. It's just a place to start. It was at the school, and it arms the whole community who are like rah-rahers. It arms them all, because they would all say yes to it, but now they could have concrete things to be like to the naysayer. Yeah, but did you know this is going on and this, and we need this? And that's what's nice about having it at school events. But yeah, we did. And Matt and I think, went to just about every place that would let us in, and Matt even more than me on the bond. And I do think that was effective. I think we always had, I mean, we talked to as few as like 5 people and as many as probably like 30, at a time with that. So
No, I agree. And I knew, obviously, in a different capacity than I was. But the other thing I think is educating on the difference between a bond and a levy, because we see new getting built everywhere right now. And yet there's a lot of maintenance and people don't know that. But average, I mean, I didn't know this probably 6 months ago, what the difference between a bond and a levy was. Like, that's not just.
I'd say that's the biggest challenge, and always has been and always will be with school finance, is like trying to get people to understand the difference, and that not every dollar that comes in, most of it can only be spent in a specific way. We can't cross pots of money, and so it's hard for people to understand, and it's hard to communicate that as well. So, is there anything? So maybe just leave this on here and kind of try to develop a plan for how we're going to move forward with the communication piece prior to a resolution. Is there any?
should that be like a separate committee, do you think, or is that kind of like
I think that's maybe a capital planning capital planning might be able to take that on and start that process.
Okay, and that's true, because that's where we started the building as well, was in capital planning. So if that's what we want to do, and
I think that worked well to have a smaller committee that really came with a plan and then everybody could get behind it.
I don't think it would hurt whether we do a bond or a levy to involve community members in that group, just like we did last time. I thought that was very effective. So
Is there any public comment? Hearing none, we will move on to deferred maintenance. Wayne, do you want to talk to us about that, or is Matt going to talk to us about that?
Wayne is in the process of creating that deferred maintenance list. I want everything on there. I want small day-to-day projects, doorknobs, things like that. And then we obviously need our bigger needs on there as well. So Wayne is working on that, and I'll let him attest to where he's at with that. But I've put that in the hands of Wayne, and the principals will help him a little bit. But we need that moving forward at the high school is kind of the top priority there.
Do you have anything to add to that? Okay, sounds good. Do we have any questions or comments? Go ahead, Jen.
I think it's nice to kind of have those champion projects, kind of like the graph floor, that issue with the floor was to show the community how desperate we are, but also that full list, like Matt was saying, to just show the community how much comes out of that specific, fund of money. So it's nice to have all of it together.
Any public comment? Hearing none, we will move on to 4-day school week. So this is something that was brought up a while back and then kind of resurfaced. So just kind of what are our options for that? What do we can ask Matt?
I'll kind of fill you guys in a little bit. I know there's a study that's coming out of the University of Montana. So I imagine I was been told, in fact, we talked about it today in my superintendent conference meeting, and there should be a study coming out, not just of Montana schools, but though it'll surround Montana schools in regards to the validity of the 4-day week, if there's benefits educationally and all that. And that should be coming out, I was told today, probably early November. So that would be very good data coming from, as reputable a source that U of M can be. That we'll go ahead and like to look at that. I think that would be valuable information. So I'm hearing today that that's going to be coming out fairly quickly here.
Since you guys were talking about it today, what were some of the other supers' ideas or feelings about the 4-day week? I'm sure there's a few of them there that have 4-day weeks in their district already. And
right.
How is the state feeling about that?
There's 4 Class A schools that currently do it. There's no double A's. And really what it boils down to, this again, what I'm hearing from them is that the educational advantages are pretty much zero. I mean, they're not necessarily educational disadvantages, but there's no real huge educational advantages. They are seeing some improvements in attendance, meaning some slight improvements. Kids do have a Friday to go do some things. They're not seeing as much time missed. The schools that have had the most effect on attendance are the ones that have just drawn a line in the sand that says, we will not, we'll play a home game on a Tuesday or a Thursday, but we are not going to travel and miss school on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday. And there's a lot of those schools, mostly B's and C's, that have just drawn that line in the sand. Those are the schools that have probably been the most effective. I can say that there's a real positivity among a lot of schools and towns, amongst the citizens that like it. every school says, you know, there was a fear initially, and then now we would never get rid of it. I heard that just the other day from the Fairview superintendent. But there's other schools that haven't liked it. So I'll be interested to see what the study comes up with, and less anecdotal evidence and more, hey, this is the actual numbers. This is what we're actually seeing and hearing from schools that are doing it. So it is pretty interesting. I know that it hasn't been the recruiting or retention tool that some schools thought it would be. And again, that's supposed to be in this study as well. Because once everyone's doing it, and that's the argument, once everyone's doing it, then it's not a big advantage to have it. But I know in the small schools, it's been an advantage for a few years as they recruit people into 4-day weeks. And I've had that told to me a number of times. But again, as more schools go to 4-day weeks, then it becomes less of an advantage for any one school.
Are we having trouble with that anyway? So I mean, would that be a big boon to us, do you think, for a 4-day week?
You know, Peggy might be able to attest to that. I'm not hearing that a lot. That, hey, I don't want to go to Laurel because they have a 5-day week versus going to some other school. Right now, I don't think it's hurting us too bad. But again, maybe Peggy and HR could attest to that a little better. But I don't think it's hurting us a ton right now.
That's correct. It's not hurting us a ton. It has factored in a couple of situations I can think of off the top of my head where we offered a position, but they ended up going out to Park City because they had a 4-day work week. But we pay more. So if you're giving one or taking another, it doesn't matter. So just two that I can think of off the top of my head. So no, not hurting us or helping.
There's different ways different schools are doing a 4-day week too. So that's something to look at if we get to that point and we're looking at it is how are we going to do it? There's a little bit different tweaks on it.
Right. There may be some large advantages from an educational standpoint because maybe on a few Fridays a month, we do some sort of intervention with kids who are struggling, kids who are missing assignments, kind of work it into the whole ICU concept that the middle school uses or some sort of scaffolding on a Friday to help kids who are specifically needing that extra attention in a smaller setting, whereas kids who are doing really well maybe don't need that. So there is some advantages to and some things we could use those Fridays for. We would probably have to get rid of early outs on Wednesdays, for example, and then that PIR, professional development time, could be placed on Fridays as well for a few days here and there. So in the end, I mean, it's not really going to change a teacher's hours on the job. They're still going to work those same time. It's just how we're approaching that educational needs, and can a Friday partial day for kids to come in and get a little bit more one-on-one or one-on-two, one-on-three type help versus 1-on-20. That might be some advantages from that standpoint. So I'm hearing that if you do it right, there's a lot of great opportunities for us to help kids. But you can't, I don't want anyone to think that a 4-day week is just like, well, we're all just going to work only 20% less and go about our world. I think there really is some opportunities to do some great things with the Fridays where they wouldn't be regular educational setting, but might be more of an intervention.
I also thought about, and I think it wouldn't work under the current CBA, but splitting. What if the high school ran 4 days and the elementary district was still running 5? Is that a feasible thing? Obviously, that's a CBA thing, but partly a CBA thing.
Everything's doable, guys. Everything's doable as long as we have the conversations as to what's best for the kids and best for education. I mean, everything's technically on the table till it's not.
I was just gonna throw this out there too. I think it'd be beneficial for us to also survey our community, because when you have a lot of little kids at home and you have a 4-day school week and you work 5 days a week, there has to be some sort of a place for them to go. You know, and I'm not sure we're set up at the district to hold like a daycare type thing on a Friday, but because again, you would need staffing and all of that. But I think that is a concern in this community that always has existed, is the lack of childcare within the community. So I just think that's a prevalent concern that to look at. So.
I agree. I think that we need to survey, a part of this needs to be a survey out to the community. I mean, not just our parents or guardians of students, but the community at large, like we did with the building, just to get some feedback on what that looks like. Any other comments, questions? So I guess we'll just kind of wait till that study comes out, Matt, and then report back.
I think that's fair.
Is everybody okay with that? Okay, we will move along to our next agenda item 7th grade core curriculum novel, Code Talkers. Charlotte?
So I just wanted to bring this up and give you guys a heads up that this request came through my office to replace the anchor text for one of the 7th grade units. So with our Amplify ELA program, that is our core resource, each unit has a text that is anchored to the theme that they discuss. And in 7th grade, the current anchor text is A Raisin in the Sun. And the teachers chose to not teach A Raisin in the Sun just because of some implications that they felt were inappropriate to be. There's references to abortion. It's not explicitly taught or explicitly spoken of, but there's innuendos and underlying references that most of the time go right over the kids' heads, but there's always that chance. So they replaced that text 2 years ago with a novel called Brian's Song, and it's on our district approved novel list, and they already had a unit of study built, and so they were using that one. But one of the things that we've been talking a lot about when we did our school improvement plan last year was our Indian Education for All integration into content. And so the 7th grade teachers have found a novel that's in the digital part of Amplify, but it is not a novel that is on our district approved novel list. So it's in Amplify digitally, but we don't have a class set of this novel, and it's called Code Talker. It also has, like I said, lots of really good Indian Ed for All connections that they feel like they could really play on. And it ties into the unit, and the unit is on character and conflict, which this novel would be a good novel for that. So they submitted the request. They were in the process of trying to, they are not currently on my funding rotation for ELA. So they were looking to PTA for funding, and I brought this to Learning and Leadership just as a heads up that this request might be coming to the full board to adopt this novel as one of the novels on the district approved list. So I just got the email, I think yesterday, from Mr. Iverson in 7th grade that they did get funding through PTA. And so they are looking to get this. I'll be bringing the formal request to the board to adopt this novel probably at the next board meeting, but just wanted to kind of give you guys a heads up that this was coming your way. About the novel or weren't familiar with it, you had time to look it up. Yeah. No, it would be for this school year. So the units in Amplify are not necessarily dependent on each other, like going in sequence. So I think that this is unit 3. So they could actually push it to like unit 6 and then move something up and do something while they were waiting for the books. If this wasn't approved, they would stick with Brian's Song. It's not their favorite. They don't feel it's the best novel to teach this unit of study. So they'd like to move to this other novel, and it would just be a matter of getting the books purchased, getting it board approved on the list. They've already started thinking about what the unit plan would look like. It would actually mirror a lot of the unit planning that's already done, because the concepts and the standards that they're teaching to are the same. It's really like the day-to-day activities around this novel in comparison to a different novel that would change.
You have to come talk so Matt can hear you.
My past work as a middle school principal, Code Talkers has high student interest. It's a little more modern than Brian's Song. So it holds their attention a lot better to have more and deeper discussion. That's my 2 cents.
Can you hear me now? Okay. So everybody's fine with that moving. Okay. So we'll put that on as an action item for the next meeting so they can move forward with ordering. Next item is future discussion items. Does anybody have anything that we need to put on future agenda that we haven't already talked about? Hearing nothing, I guess we'll go ahead and adjourn. We did pretty good.